Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much to join us again for the, I think, fifth episode of the Quranic live show. I'm here with Imam Adam Jamal and Kareem, and we're going to be going through Surah Al-Hujurat. Again, we'll be going through the tafsir, the tajweed. You might learn some of the explanation of the verses and maybe a bit more about the pronunciation as well, inshallah. So we'll jump straight into it. Bismillah. So we're carrying on from verse 12. We'll be reading it in Arabic, reading the translation, and then reading the tafsir. And then we'll have a bit of a discussion around that as well. So if we're all ready, Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم. All you who believe, اجتنبوا, avoid, stay away, كثيرا من الظن, from much or too many assumptions. إن بعد الظن إثم. Indeed, some assumptions are sinful. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. Do not spy on each other. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. And do not speak ill of each other. Do not backbite each other. أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother? فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. You would hate it. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ. And be mindful of Allah. Inna Allah tawwabur rahim. Allah is tawwab, accepting of repentance, continuously accepting of repentance. Rahim, most merciful. So please give us the commentary, Brother Laith. You're muted, Brother Laith.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this verse continues to address the manner in which community ties can be undone by bad blood. Regarding conjecture, a hadith warns, beware of conjecture, for it is indeed the most misleading form of speech. On another occasion, the Prophet warned, a leader will corrupt his people if he pursues conjecture regarding them. Spying, tajasus, is considered a sin, as it usually indicates suspicion of another sin and thinking ill of another. Inquiring, tahassus, on the other hand, is done for the benefit of the one being inquired about. In this regard, Ali ibn Abu Talib reported to have said, do not be quick to expose another's sins, for he might be forgiven for it, and do not feel yourself safe even from a small sin, since you may be punished for it. Every one of you who comes to know the faults of others should not expose them in view of what he knows about his own faults, and should remain busy in gratitude that he has been saved from that in which others have been indulging. That's from Nahj al-Balagha, Sermon 139. And a hadith states that those who eavesdrop will have molten copper in their ears on the Day of Judgment, as spying usually implies seeking faults. It is closely tied to backbiting, which is understood to mean saying anything about another that he or she would not like to have said. In this regard, the Prophet is reported to have said, O gathering of those who submit with their tongues, but in whose hearts faith has not yet taken hold. Do not harm Muslims, do not shame them, and do not pursue their faults. For whoever pursues the faults of his Muslim brother, God will pursue his faults. And he whose faults are pursued by God, God disgraces them, even in his own home. In contrast, another hadith states, whoever covers the fault of a Muslim in this world, God will cover his faults in this world and the next. And truly God continues to help the servant so long as the servant continues to help his brother. And God relentlessly correlates with human beings repenting, as both translate the same verb tab yatub. The majority of scholars have stated that repentance for backbiting entails refraining from backbiting and intending not to repeat it. There is a difference of opinion as to whether one must apologize to the harmed party. Some maintain that it is not necessary to ask forgiveness from the victim because if the person knew what was said, it would cause more hurt than not being told about it. It is better to praise the wronged person among those who had previously heard the negative comments, and it is also better to defend the injured party against any further backbiting as recompense for their previous ill-advised words. When backbiting becomes open and extends to slander and false accusations, the punishment can be severe, as in 24:4. And as for those who accuse chaste women, but then do not bring 4 witnesses, flog them 80 lashes and never accept any testimony from them. So that's the tafsir from the study Quran. We'll bring on Kareem for any comments. There's quite a lot to unpack there.
There's
quite
a lot
big
to unpack. Subhanallah.
subhanallah.
I mean, it's such a beautiful verse. It's such a beautiful verse, I think, because I feel like when I read it, one of my reflections is this cycle that's being outlined for us
Yeah.
of a bad cycle. A person who's maybe falling under the influence of poor character or for whatever reason, they have some negative suspicions and assumptions about someone else. So then they start listening in and they start
Yeah.
spying and trying to figure out the deets. And then they spill the tea, as people say. You know, they start spreading those things around in the community, backbiting. So it's like this whole cycle that starts from a bad place, it ends in a bad place. In the middle is a bad place. Like all the elements of it are negative, and Allah is warning us against it. But like what my reflection from reading this verse is that the cure for it is so simple. It's just mind your business.
Yeah.
You know, don't like we know from our tradition, we're supposed to make excuses for each other if we see someone doing something bad. You know, cover it as you mentioned, right? So Allah will cover all of our many misdeeds. We're supposed to do that for us. I mean, and we're supposed to have husna then, right? We're supposed to assume the best of each other, not sui then, just assuming the worst. So the cure is just like mind your business. But I think it's such a beautiful verse because it covers like the whole life cycle of the rumor mill.
There's also another piece of this which I was reflecting on, and Jazakallah khair, about the feeling of like, what is it that ties these 3 things together? The first one being, and actually, if we go back to the previous verses, talking about don't mock each other, okay? Don't defame each other. Don't insult one another with nicknames or bad nicknames or false nicknames. Then this verse talking about don't make bad assumptions, don't spy on each other, and don't make riba, don't backbite each other. So the thread that to me ties all this together is any feeling of superiority. Any feeling of superiority. The verse actually explains this in the previous verse. لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم. That no group should mock another group. It might just be that that group is better than them. So in our minds is that we are better. Because what is it that leads us to backbite someone, right? It's usually a feeling of I'm superior to this person. I deserve to say something about them. To spy on someone. Let me find something bad about this person so that I can feel superior to them. So it's not necessarily that you believe you're superior, but you feel that you should be superior. And what is it that makes us make bad assumptions of people? Same thing is the sense of superiority. So the Quran is telling us at least the common thread that I see between these is the feeling of superiority, and which is explained in the previous verse as well, and that is a primary blocker to brotherhood, a primary blocker to brotherhood, right? Because the verse before that,
Mm,
verse 10, is about إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. All the believers are brothers, and
mm,
so that there has to be that level of what is the blocker to brotherhood? It is the feeling of superiority. Because how can you be a brother to someone who you feel superior towards?
mm.
Um,
No, 100%. It's this it's interesting to see the reaction you have to pay for as well for engaging in this from the hadith of whether you should go apologize to that person. And from a justice perspective, I see that as like, okay, you've done this thing, but I also see, okay, if you go tell this person, look, I did this. But the amount of but I guess, like you said, Kareem, the easiest thing to avoid all of this is just stop talking behind people's backs. Just not to need to consider, oh, how do I seek forgiveness, defend them, and and have to seek recompense. And there's also the punishment of potentially not having that same covering of faults by Allah. There's all these faults we have as individuals, and we share that just with between us and Allah, and that is at risk if you then start going around trying to uncover it from everyone else. So and I think what you were saying, Imam Adam, about this being about superiority, I had a sneak peek with the verse ahead, and I think this was about it kind of goes into a little bit of, I think, the verses I've seen a lot with racism, and when people think one race is better than the other, and it seems to be this whole theme that's playing between these. It definitely plays into that. So before I spoil too much, I think we'll go to the
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
spoiler alert. So no,
yeah.
Jazakallah khair so much. This is the next verse here.
All right. We want to keep going. Um, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O people, we created you all from a single male and a single female, and we made you into peoples, nations, and tribes so that you may get to know each other. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The most noble of you in Allah's eyes, or according to Allah, is the most mindful or God conscious of you. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. Allah is all knowing, all aware.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'll jump into the tafsir of that from the study Quran. So this is among the most famous verses of the Quran. From a male and a female can be understood as a reference to Adam and Eve, but also to the creation of each human being from the fluid of a man and a woman. That people have been divided into diverse peoples and tribes that they may come to know one another, indicates the manner in which differences in tribe, race, ethnicity, language, nationality, and religion can be sources through which human beings gain a deeper appreciation for the reality of the human condition. In this regard, the Prophet has said, God looks at your bodies, nor at your forms. He looks at your hearts. In another hadith, the heart is presented as the reality that determines all other dimensions of one's being. There is in man a clump of flesh. It is pure. The whole body is pure. If it is polluted, the whole body is polluted. It is the heart. The outward diversity that divides human beings is thus one of the greatest tests that human beings confront in the life of this world. As in 548, and had God willed, he would have made you one community, but he willed otherwise, that he might try you in which he has given you. So vie with one another in good deeds, Unto God shall be your return altogether, and he will inform you of what wherein you differ, of that wherein you differ. The combination of nobility and reverence marks a remarkable transition from the attitudes of pre-Islamic Arabia, in which reverence, taqwa, which also has the sense of God-fearing or just fearing in pre-Islamic Arabia, and nobility were considered polar opposites. The late Medinian verse thus signals a revamping of the moral order of Arabia to one in which true worth is no longer determined by lineage and grandiose displays of valor and generosity, but by the depth and faith of piety. In this vein, the Prophet is reported to have said, "Truly God has ennobled those who were lowly during the age of ignorance. Through Islam, God removed the zealotry of the age of ignorance and its custom of vainglorious boasting regarding kinfolk and noble descent. Today, all people, be they white, black, Qurayshi, Arab, or non-Arab, are seen to be descendants of Adam. And assuredly, God created Adam from clay, and the people most beloved by God on the day of resurrection will be most obedient and most reverent among them." So I'll hand off to Kareem there for any comments on that. We're putting it all on you, Kareem.
It's hard to put into words how much I love it. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, bro. Bars. I shouldn't say that respectful. That's not forgiving. But that mashallah is so self-contained, so beautiful, so like so holistic. The if you want to be like these last three ayat that have been read are all about, you know, this focus on unity, right?
Yeah.
To not focus on finding faults with others, and instead to come together, right? We should be competing in good, not trying to bring each other down. So this is big focus on unity. And in the previous verse, it even it mentions to us that it's like the eating the flesh of a dead person. It's to your own detriment. You couldn't even stomach that. You would vomit, right? So the lack of unity is to our own detriment. So we should be focusing on being unified. And if we want to have superiority, if we truly want to be elevated over our fellow man in this competition from good, then the way we get there is through taqwa, right? Subhanallah. So this invisible relationship with Allah, with the, you know, in our internal relationship with Him, competing for good. It's just such a perfect summary of the religion, right? That's how we compete for good. Is in this relationship we have with Allah.
Jazakallah khair. And then continuing on from the superiority kind of idea, right? So then it's like that question is answered here. Remember, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, that the most noble of you is the most God-fearing, the most God-conscious. And so it's that same thread that we see from the beginning. Like, what is the blocker to brotherhood? True brotherhood is feelings of superiority, which leads to assumption, which leads to mocking, which leads to ghiba, which leads to tajassus, spying. And so you have all of those things that are the blockers to brotherhood. You overcome those things, then you remember the question all along is who is most noble. Who is most noble is not about your race, and that's the other. So I could say that the next blocker, which is also stemming from feelings of superiority, which is the shaitani kind of idea of I'm better than him. Ana khayrun minhu. خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. You made me from fire and you made him from clay. Shaitan, Iblis said about Adam. Right, this feeling of superiority over things that actually you don't have control over, which is your race or your gender, or and so on, right? So so we made you from male and female, and we made you into nations and tribes so that you may get to know each other. So all those kind of differences that are blockers to brotherhood have been mentioned, subhanallah, in this verse. So if you need a program, if you needed a program of how to improve your brotherhood, these are the ways these are the ways to do it. And then finally the passage concludes with this idea of the most noble of you before Allah are the most God-fearing of you. And then finishing off with inna Allah alimun khabir. When Allah's names are mentioned at the end of the verse, it's important to reflect upon what could it be. Like, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? why would Allah, and Laith, I'll pose that question to you, pop quiz, but
Yeah.
not pop quiz, but like there's no right answer here. But like, why would Allah mention that He is all knowing and all aware at the end of this passage or these few verses? Kareem, open to your answer as well.
I guess
No,
the
Leith
way I
has his hand on his chin. He's thinking.
yeah, I think I can take a crack at this, but I think the way I would see that is if you do have these, as in I think sometimes I have this thing living here. Um, Sometimes I worry more about what people don't say than what they say when it comes to people that might have some prejudices against Islam or particular race or that kind of arena. A lot of what we're talking about here, prejudices against someone's nationality, their race, their background, their language, so on and so forth. And I'm often, I say I'm more fearful of what people don't say out loud than what they say out loud. And I feel this is kind of a reference to that, is people really, when they sometimes they have those thoughts of prejudice, it's held inside them. They might not always say it unless you're one of those people that go around dropping racist comments here and there. We have a few of those here. But is that you're accountable to even those prejudices that you might hold in yourself, and those are still visible to Allah, whether you reveal that or you don't reveal that. God is all knowing of what we hold in our hearts and what we reveal, and God is all aware of that. So that's kind of my big takeaway from that. What you said about Iblis, this was, that he was the one, he was the first racist. So if you ever have, you don't like this racist here or there, you should feel even more hatred towards Iblis, because he was racist number one between the clay and the fire. So that's my answer to that pop quiz question. Is I think for me it does remind me of people I feel often hold this in their hearts. They kind of say, I'm better than this, I'm better than you, I speak this language, I understand things better than you. It does remind me of a bit of I see here as a bit of a kind of colonial mindset. We come over to you, we educate you, we know what we're doing, we gave you trains, kind of thing. And this is a kind of rejection of that. It doesn't make you any better because you come from this background, you speak this language. Its value is taqwa of Allah.
Jazakallah khair. Kareem, anything to add?
SubhanAllah, I mean, the two reflections I get that come to my head from these two names of Allah coming at the end of this verse. First, like Layth was saying, Allah it's Allah's al-alim, and He's al-khabir. So not only does He know everything, but He's also all aware, right? So there's like a more subtlety of these two names coming together. And the theme in this ayah specifically here is about like feelings of arrogance between people of different backgrounds, right? So some of that stuff is internal to your heart. But so my reflection here is, even those things that may be invisible, these prejudices that you hold inside, also is aware of these arrogances. So it's important for us to purify our hearts from things like this. Although you cannot see your prejudice that lives in your heart, it will manifest itself in your actions, right? Allah is aware of our prejudices. The next reflection I find is that with these two attributes put back to back, Allah knows everything. Allah knows best, right? And so if you really want to be unified, if you really want to succeed, then you should follow the advice of the one who knows.
Jazakallah khair. With regards to this idea of getting to know each other, there's a command in there. Like, you see someone who's different from you, who's a different nation, different tribe, and it happens more often here in the West, I feel, but it even happens in the East, to be honest. But in the West, because Muslims are from everywhere and it's not monoculture generally, it's lots of different cultures put together. But still, you see, like at the masjid, even though, like our masjid where Kareem and I go, where I'm the Imam and Kareem is also very active there, and here in Seattle, and so when people, even though it's so diverse and there's so many different groups, mashallah, that are all coming together under Islam, you still see that people have a certain And it makes sense, like a certain affinity towards people of the same culture and background, because they speak the same language, they have the same background, they kind of know each other outside the masjid as well. They go to each other's homes and so on. But there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's important that you don't only give salam to the ones you know. You don't give only salam to the ones who, and that's something which we try to talk about in the masjid. Like, give salam to
Mm.
everyone, right? Open your heart
Yeah.
to everyone. And actually, in this verse is the implicit command: "We made you in nations and tribes, لِتَعَارَفُوا," for the purpose of getting to know each other. So that means the purpose is to get to know each other. That means that's a purpose that's given to you by Allah. So
Mm.
when you shake your brother's hands and you meet someone you don't know from a different language, different culture, different nation, guess what? You are fulfilling the command of Allah. You're fulfilling the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that introduction, even if it's hard, even if it's outside your comfort zone, even though you don't want to, right? Like my one of my family members was visiting, and he went to one of the local masjids, and he said, no one said salam to me. I'm a new person.
Mm.
It's a small masjid. Everyone knows each other, and no one said salam to me. And he felt like, it needs to be really nurtured in the community, especially if it's a smaller community. I understand in a big community there's always people coming and going, but even in these small communities, and even in big communities, to be honest, someone new comes, someone you haven't seen before, go and give salam to them, right? Don't wait for the
Yeah.
imam to do it, the muezzin to do it, the board member to do it. Go give salam. That's you fulfilling the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Like, that's, if you were to take action item, like, what is one thing you could do? You see someone new in your masjid, in your community, at your home, right? Or at the wedding, whatever, right? You give salam to someone you don't know, you're fulfilling Allah's purpose, inshallah.
Yeah.
So something to think about,
It's
because this will,
it
inshallah,
reminds
teach brotherhood. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
sorry. It does remind me a bit of the, like, salam is the minimum for us. Salam is the wajib thing. It reminds me a little bit, the thing you would do in a community like that is, ideally, when you had the Prophet, when they made the hijrah from Mecca to Medina. I don't know what the official name for it is. I just have it in my head as the buddy program. So you had people, the brothers would be paired
Mm.
with one to the other, so that there
Muafa.
was integration in the community. Yeah. Um, this is to extent in which we should welcome newcomers. As you'd have people paired together as brothers. You're related now. You're brothers now. You get to know each other. I always see if I can. I've been trying to find a way if I can implement this in some practical manner today. But I've yet to find a way to do that. But because we're a smaller community, it's maybe a bit more explorable. But I don't know how to say to people in kind way, like, go make friends with the people that come. Don't just leave them sitting in the corner and everyone speaks their own language and they don't understand what you're saying and they just stare at the ceiling for like 2 hours and they go home. Oh, nobody really, this is not the Arab club. This is the mosque, guys. It's a big thing to communicate and teach to the community over time, I think. And I think this verse is a key thing to keep in mind. We're not gathering because we all speak the same language and we all miss the food of our home country. We're gathering because of, for the sake of Allah.
Mm.
Mm.
Beautiful. Jazakallah khair. For the sake of Allah.
Should we do the next verse? If that, I don't want to push anyone if they hadn't made a comment on that, but
All right. Bismillah. Um, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا إن الله غفور رحيم. The desert Arabs, they say, we have faith, we have iman. O Prophet, tell them, lam tu'binu, you do not fully have faith. Rather, you should say, we have submitted, aslamna, we have submitted, we have become Muslims. For faith has not yet entered your hearts. Iman has not yet entered your hearts. If you obey Allah and His Messenger, He will not diminish any of your deeds. Allah will not diminish any of your deeds. He is the most forgiving and the most merciful.
And I'll go ahead and read the tafsir of this verse in English as well. This verse indicates that belief is of a higher rank than submission, that faith has degrees, and that tribal affiliations are superseded by those of faith. It was reportedly revealed with regard to members of the tribe Banu Asad, who had moved to Medina after a drought and sought charity, claiming that they were true believers and had a right to the same considerations as those who had followed the Prophet for many years. Some say they were hypocrites, while others say they simply had not yet attained faith, though they had made a formal submission. In this sense, this verse admonishes all forms of religious pretension, as in 53:32, do not deem yourselves purified, he knows best the reverent. Modesty and humility are thus exalted as among the highest of virtues. As in a hadith, modesty produces naught but good. The injunction to obey God and his messenger here indicates that as long as Muslims remain obedient, they will be rewarded for the best of their deeds. It also implies that their bad deeds may be forgiven, as stated in a hadith. If a servant submits and perfects his submission, Islam, God will record for him every good deed that he performed before submitting, and every evil deed that he performed before submitting will be erased. After that, the requiting for that good deed will be tenfold up to 700-fold, and for the evil deed, one like it, unless God absolves him of it. So I'll bring back on Karim as well, and we can open this up to discussion.
Oh man, this one's deep. SubhanAllah, there's a lot going on. So forgive me here, but it seems like here in this ayah we get this implication that there is in fact a distinction between a mu'min and a Muslim, right? We know, of course, the Hadith Jibreel. We find out these elevations between a Muslim, the mu'min, the muhsin, how a relationship with Allah has gradations. Of course, I'm Sheikh and we'll share more about that, inshallah, perhaps. But in this verse, if I understand the context, we had some Bedouins who were requesting support, and they came to the Prophet ﷺ extolling their own virtues, like we're high level Muslims, right? We're high level believers, and so we deserve this support. And tying in this ayah to the one that comes previous to it, that tell us that to truly elevate ourselves in the sight of Allah demands a strong internal, invisible relationship with Him in terms of our taqwa, right? The one who is the most noble, that person has the best relationship with Allah, which is invisible, right? The same perhaps could be true here of Iman, meaning that when it comes to your relationship with Allah, it's not something that you use as a political capital to leverage, to negotiate, right? This is a private thing between you and Allah. So we can't claim ourselves to be of a high tier. In this case, subhanAllah, this is kind of hardcore. It's almost like they were exposed. You're claiming you're level 2, but relax. You're still level 1. But yeah, anyway, I'll leave it there.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's interesting to put it like a level 1, level 2. It's I guess it's that thing at the end of the day, we don't know our own level. We don't get handed that until the day of judgment. So it's something that we have to be. We cannot be presumptuous. I got from that is don't be presumptuous. Oh yes, I'm so and so, knowledgeable person. I have this political leverage. I like the way you put it. Just because I have this status. And that there's a level of whatever level you are, there's always dignity to be had, always shame to be had. Not shame necessarily, but a bit of I'm trying to find the word. It's kind of like dignity, but dignity kind of summarizes that well. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. There's interesting. So this verse is talking about there being essentially 2 levels, or there being a difference between Islam and Iman, right? So the Bedouin say that you have submitted, but you have not believed. So there's a difference between submission and Iman, right? Um, and there's a difference between saying you have iman and iman actually entering the heart. Now,
Yep.
who knows the condition of the heart? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So this is not something necessarily that is that's something that we can actually tell. This is not something that we can actually tell that oh you are a Muslim and you're this and you're that. Like you can't actually differentiate people like that. But
Yeah.
a you have here a differentiation. And like you guys mentioned, Karim, you had mentioned about not using your Islam to like get things, to obtain things,
Mm.
um, but rather realizing that you have your place. And so, in this case, there people came to Islam for different reasons. So people came to Islam because the Muslims were the only ones supporting them, right? People came to Islam because they met the Prophet ﷺ, fell in love with who he was as a person,
Mm.
and wanted to follow him. There's the people who came to Islam because of war, after war. So they were conquested or conquered, like the Fath of Mecca. After the Fath of Mecca, so many of the Quraysh came to Islam. Abu Sufyan, the greatest enemy of the Prophet ﷺ, who led battles against the Prophet ﷺ, he became Muslim after the Fath of Mecca, right? And it's hard to say who any one person why they did it. Of course, that's with Allah subhanahu wa taala, and no one knows anyone's true iman. But you have a timeline, right? And so some people generally, you had some people that you could generally say they came to Islam because of family. So their family members submitted, and they're like, hey, me too, right? You have stories of mass conversion into Islam where the tribal leader became Muslim, and everyone became Muslim
Mm.
after that. So there's a difference between that initial level of submission. That what does submitting mean? It means, look, I submit. I
Yeah.
submit that Allah is one and Muhammad is the messenger. I submit. I submit to it. Now, does that actually has it actually penetrated the heart? That's a journey of your life. It's where this comes up nowadays. So it might seem like it's far away, but actually every day you get in the masjid people who want to convert to Islam for one
Mm.
reason or another. One of the common things is for marriage. So someone wants
Mm.
to convert for the purpose of marriage in order to be accepted by the family, or in the case of women, the husband needs to become Muslim in order for her to get married. Um, and so this this comes up all the time where someone says, "Well, I don't want." You see this nowadays. I don't want someone to convert for me or
Mm.
to believe this for me. I want them to come to it themselves. And what I explained to them is there's a difference, right? It, someone saying the shahada, it doesn't necessarily mean that iman has they're now the biggest believer. It just means they've submitted. As this verse says, it just means that they've submitted to Islam. They've submitted that if they want to be married to you, if they want to be part of your life, if they want to be committed to you in this fashion, they must submit to Allah and His Messenger. Right? That
Mm.
has to happen. Right? Now, will they become the best believer? That's the journey of life. I mean, all of us are on that journey. No one can say,
Yeah.
"I'm done now." Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
If you say that, then you're in trouble, right? No one
Yeah.
can say, "I'm done now."
Mm.
Iman is a journey. Iman is a journey, and you will continue to improve, and you'll continue to practice, and you'll continue. Iman will go up and it'll go down. You'll evolve, you will change, you will adapt according to life's phases. When you have kids, or you don't have kids, when you get older, all of those are all part of Iman. But Islam is just that first submission to Allah and His Messenger, that
Mm.
first point, that point of submission. And so this verse very beautifully talks about that first point of submission versus that iman that enters the heart, and that both of those things are the personal relationship from Allah. So you can't say to anyone, well, you just did this for this reason. Well, you don't know, because
Mm.
guidance is not in your hands. you know um like if you guidance is not in your hands, iman is not in your hands. So
Yeah.
you can bring someone who has become Muslim to your parents, right? You can bring someone who's Muslim to your parents, but you can't guarantee that they are the truest of believers yet, right?
No.
Mm.
That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not something anyone can guarantee, um
But
even if the outward is there. So it's something which is the test of our lives, the challenge of our lives is how are we going to have this true connection with Allah and truly have the iman in our hearts, inshallah. Sorry
That is
for going
really
on a little bit long.
no more than okay.
Thoughts on
No,
that?
it's really beautifully put. It reminds me a lot of, I see it on social media all the time, and I'm sure you see it more off social media than on social media. This issue with reverts, that they will become Muslim, and it's like 0 to 100, and everyone expects them to be able to get every single one of the rulings and requirements and the necessities of Islam immediately, straight away. It's different because on social media people like have the expectation, oh, you're sharing this, because you're sharing this you have to be like sheikh, and you have to be, on top of everything. And we saw this a lot in the last 6 months odd with what happened with Gaza. Lots of people came to Islam, and people in the comment section were just trying to push them away, essentially saying, oh, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. That was like most of the comments. But what I like is this kind of very holistic way, which this kind of hadith puts it, is, and the verse says as well, he won't diminish your deeds just because you've not reached. And I think this is my understanding from this, and if this is incorrect, do inform me. But that even if you haven't reached iman, doesn't mean the deeds you do are to naught. And once you reach that point of iman, those deeds will be counted in their full. So it's just because someone has not reached that full doesn't mean we dismiss it. And that's a lesson for how we treat others and how we treat ourselves. I think it's very easy. Oh, I've done this one thing, I'm not perfect, and people spiral and they start going, oh, well, I should stop doing this, and what's the point anymore? It's like, that's not Islam. Islam is a journey. It's not just all in one. Either you take Islam 100% from Islam 0%. Everything is in levels, the same way that alcohol was made forbidden. It was in levels. People had to build into it. So I think that really encapsulates a lot of what I've seen with that, and kind of on social media with reverts, and kind of clarifies what our real kind of reaction should be with how we deal with reverts and how we deal with ourselves when it comes to this.
What do you think, Kareem?
Alhamdulillah, I mean, you guys covered everything, subhanAllah. You guys covered everything, mashallah.
In your work with like converts, people who come to Islam, you know, well, how do you think about this idea of people kind of teaching them everything all at once?
I honestly, Laith mentioned earlier this concept of mu'akha. To me, I don't have the numbers to back it up. Forgive me, but I think the thing that is the most critical for me is whenever we have someone in the masjid, they accept Islam, is pairing them up with somebody who lives nearby to them that's like literally going to be their brother, who'll do the things that a brother does. We don't always do all religious stuff together all the time, right? We might go get food to eat, talk about life, help each other with advice, help people find jobs, these kinds of things. Because in my experience, the people who enter Islam, they're from different walks of life. So not everybody is a successful urban professional, right? We have people who come in who are, maybe they're homeless, or they're in a bad spot, or this and that and stuff. So they need community support so much, equally as much as they need all of the access to the education. They also oftentimes are replacing a community that has rejected them, right? They've basically abandoned one community, and so they also need a new community to welcome them. We do a really good job on day one as a community. Alhamdulillah. Nobody does a better job than us. We are the best day one community on the face of this earth, I think.
Yeah.
But where we struggle is continuing that support.
Day two. We struggle on day two.
We struggle with these.
Honestly, we're good at minute one. Minute two is where there's a challenge. It's really minute one we're really good at. Everyone, it's a common convert complaint. Like when we come to Islam, it was like, mashallah, like I've arrived to the gates of paradise, and the people are congratulating me. And then it's done. Then then you see what is that thing in the Western movies that those little balls of like dust, that are rolling around.
Tumbleweeds.
Oh yes, yeah, tumbleweeds.
The tumbleweeds are there, that's
But
what
what?
it's like.
Why do you like from your experience in the community? Why do you think that is? Why do we as Muslims, which are
I
comfortable
think
in
we know.
our
I have a feeling. I have a feeling. When we
It's
yeah
comfort
interact with
zone.
each other late, we interact with each other in the masjid itself, right? Or maybe
yeah
we've known each other, and so maybe we hang out after work or something. But what I find about the people who accept Islam is they might live actually quite far away, or they might not even have a car, or
Mm.
something like this. And so they'll
Subhanallah.
commute long distances to come to the masjid to announce and to do this public shahada to the
yeah
community,
Mm.
right? But then I'm not putting all of the blame on the people who accept Islam. I'm just trying to explain my
yeah
understanding is they may not repeatedly come back to the masjid. Perhaps they don't know that there's regular prayers, or maybe they don't come back for every Jumu'ah or something. Or maybe they do a few times and they don't feel welcome, so they stop coming back, and these kinds of things. So I think one of the other things is it's just visibility, right? That's why I think it's so important to find a brother or sister, depending on who's accepting Islam, who lives like right next to them. That's like
yeah
perfect, right? Because that's like
Mm.
an actual local community. It's a proximity,
Mm.
mm,
and that
But
can
I,
that
I'm
can
not
help.
going to I'm not going to let people off the hook so easily. I'm still going to be like, people. So I think there's the individual um obligation. Let me get the brother's number. Let me invite him
Yeah,
over for Eid. Like I remember,
yeah
family, they were just so awesome. Like if there was a convert, they would invite them over to the home. Like they used to have, their house was essentially open. Like people used to be walking in all day long, eating food,
mashallah
leaving. Obviously, they had set up, mashallah. They had blessings, mashallah. They were
mashallah
blessed family, and that is because they were blessed, honestly. And
mashallah.
mashallah
yeah, so they used to have converts coming in all the time, just eating with them, talking with them, and it was a beautiful feeling to just see people just being hospitable, opening their
mm,
doors. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. I'm not saying it's easy to open your doors, but this on an individual basis has to happen. And if not, and I understand the Western culture is a little bit different from that angle, not as open, then the masjid needs to kind of institutionalize that. So one of the things
yeah
we're working on is with having a converts committee. So as soon
Yeah,
as we have someone who converts, then the converts themselves, they
yeah
bring them in. Because unfortunately, like non-converts or born Muslims, they need training, man. They don't like they need training. They don't
yeah
deal with converts very well. The average person, they
mm,
yeah,
either. I mentioned this in my khutbah, as a part of this. Kareem, you were there on the 12th, this past Jummah on 12th. Um, basically, we either put converts on this high pedestal for that first minute. Wow, you're holy. You're this sacred, holy being for 1 minute, and
yeah
then, or we just dismiss them. You're holy for 1 minute, and then it's like you're not even really Muslim. Like, come on, what do you know? Like, let me teach you. So, are we teaching them from a feeling of superiority, which is
mm,
anti-brotherhood, or are we
yeah
teaching from a genuine relationship? Are we here when we hear their story? Are we doing it just to fill the hole of iman in ourselves, or are we
mm,
genuinely making a human connection with them? Because the way converts feel, it feels like you've been like used. Like, so how did you come to Islam? Tell us your story. Now you tell us your story, and now you tell us your story, and now you tell us your story, right? Like, hmm, that's not that inspiring to me. Assalamu alaikum. Like, what is that? Like, you're not, like, you can't just take from a person. You have to give
mm,
as well. Like,
yeah
if you ask a convert their story, you better invite them to your home. If you do
yeah
not have, if you're not gonna do
yeah,
anything for them, do not take inspiration. Like, you don't deserve that inspiration. Do you get what I'm saying?
yeah.
That's just
yeah
Very
wrong.
important.
Like, you just use a person up. Use their story for your own kind of insecurity, and then you don't even like interact with them after that. That's just humiliating. Honestly, it's upsetting, deeply upsetting to me.
very
And then
Yeah,
also
very
that,
the vulnerability of women. That's another thing I talked about in Khutbah. You can look it up, but you know, uh, the women converts especially complain. Like one Khatib, he complained to me like, "My wife helped this person come to Islam, and she converted, and someone's asking for her marriage. Like, bro, she
wow
just Islam, like people just want, I think, because we live in this era of like gender wars, people want someone they can mold, people want someone vulnerable, people want someone like they can, like,
mm,
That's not fair, right? And that never ends in good. I've never seen that end in good. Illa man
Mm,
rahima rabb. That's not the way. That's
Mm,
not the way.
mm.
You have to have the basics. You know. Khairan. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my pulpit now, and we'll have to conclude, inshallah. Our time has been reached. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair. No, Jazakallah khair. That was it's strong stuff. It's quite inspiring to hear about families like that which bring people on. But no, if there's a reason to have a home to host people in, that's it. That's I don't
Mm.
really know what else there is to do with a house with space to host. You bring the converts, you bring the community, and you just have those. You just be a pestering brother or sister. You just say, you come into the masjid. Are you doing this? Do you want to do this? They don't want to go out. You just keep on pestering them
Mm.
in the kindest possible way. Anyway, so no, we'll move
No, I
on.
love that.
Yeah,
Jazakumullah khair.
we'll wrap up, and yeah, that was good, guys. Jazakallah khair. So I think we've got a couple announcements we'll just run through. Let me just change this up. So the first thing we have is our new alphabet book. So I can't see the QR code. Let me just do this. No, that is on. Okay, so this is our new alphabet book we've been working on for quite some time now. It's got the phonetics of the Arabic letters that actually come from the English language. So if you're an English language speaker first, this is a great way to kind of come over to the Arabic language. As we've been speaking about converts and reverts, it's good for people that never learn Arabic, or even Arabic speakers that are a bit rusty. I'm one of those Arabic speakers that are a bit rusty, probably need this. Or it's a great reference tool to teach your kids as well, because they might be learning English in schools, and this is a great way to port them over. So this is available on Amazon. I'm not sure if this discount is still going on. It might be for a very limited time. It's currently $11.99, discounted from $15.99. So get on that. You can scan the QR code at the bottom of the page to do that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention before we leave you guys is our Quran Clips beta. So at Quranic, we're developing an app so that people can experience the Quran in lots of different ways, whether that's learning Arabic, but also experiencing the Quran. And this is a new way for people to listen to other people like themselves recite the Quran and publish videos of themselves reciting the Quran too. And it's just a way to inspire other Muslims to do the same, embark on the same journey. It is a difficult journey learning Arabic to read the Quran. And whatever position you are in, it takes commitment, and this is a great way to get a little boost of motivation. So if you want to join our beta, if you scan this code, it'll take you to a form, very basic form. It'll take you a couple minutes to fill in, and you'll get an invite to the beta and extra something special from us as a token of appreciation. You get a 1-month free pro code to use on the Quranic app to test out our pro features as well. So that's something you can get enrolled in right now. At the minute, this feature is on iOS, but we do have an Android beta, and that you're not excluded. You can still join the beta and test the next features, inshallah, to benefit the Quranic Arabic learning community. So I think that's everything. I think if it's just me and you, Karim, I think we can
It's
wrap
just
up.
us.
Just us.
I think
Yeah.
Imam Adam had to go grab the baby.
No, that's all right. Yeah. No, thank you so much for joining us. Inshallah, we have you next time as well. I think you guys are
Thank
the
you very
same
much
time.
for having me. Nice.
I'm over on
Appreciate
this
it.
side. No, Jazakallah khair. It was a fruitful conversation. Lots of gems in there.
That's it.
Jazakallah khair.